It is 6 o'clock, and we have adjourned from executive session, and there is no action to be taken. So at 6 o'clock, we will close the city council workshop for January 23rd. And at the same time, we will open the city council regular meeting on January 23rd. Councilman Herring, are you prepared for a prayer and pledge?
Join me in a prayer, please. Lord, thank you for this town. Thank you for the people who live here, the people who work here, the people who raise their kids here, the people who come to visit here. Thank you for such a beautiful place to live. Thank you for the rain. Please let the rain continue. Thank you for all our first responders who help protect us 24/7. Thank you for the citizens who are here tonight, who've taken their time to come be a part of their city government. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, who's ready? Stuart, you've got some announcements for us.
I do, just a few. I switched sides on you today, but we'll give a couple of quick announcements tonight. This Saturday, the library's hosting their annual stuffed animal sleepover. It's always a lot of fun. It's for parents and young children. You bring a stuffed animal to the event from 4 to 5 p.m. Pajamas are welcome. And there'll be a story and craft, and then we'll say goodbye to those animals. They'll spend the night, actually, they'll spend Saturday night and Sunday at the library. And then Monday morning from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., kids come back and find out all the adventures that the animals have been on. We've done this for, I think it's 9 years now that we've been doing it. It's a lot of fun. So if you got some small children, bring them by. It's a lot of fun. We'll hope to see you over there. These next two events we've talked about several times, but I'm just going to bring them up again. There's still tickets left for the Mother Son Dance, which is Friday, February 16th, Happy State Bank Expo Hall. But they're going fast, and there's also tickets for the very next night, February 17th, for the Daddy and Daughter Dance, and that's also at the Happy State Bank Expo Hall. So check that out if you want to go to another great event that we're putting on. And then I just also wanted to show out, in case nobody knows, we have an eclipse coming. You may have heard a little about it. It's going to be April 8th. I just want to point out that it's on our website, and you can, if you go on there, actually, if you type in www.kerrvilleeclipse.com, it will take you to this site here. It's a great site. On this site, there are links to frequently asked questions. We get asked a lot of these questions, and we've got a lot of first responders and others that have responded as far as different questions that we get. They're all going on this site. So it's one place where you can find out a whole lot of information, how to prepare for the eclipse, public events, public gathering sites, parking info. So I encourage everybody as we get closer to that event, check it out. Like I said, just a lot of good stuff, and we're really looking forward to the event and all the guests that we'll have here in Kerrville. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Council, anyone have anything they would like to add?
Just an adoption event, KPA adoption event, 11:30 to 2:30, 2102 Memorial Boulevard at our Safe House this Saturday.
All right, thank you. All right, at this time, we have a great proclamation recognizing our Kerrville Fire Department for 30 years. If you will bring our firefighters in, Chief.
Okay. There you go. It's a good way to do it.
You may clap, absolutely.
front of me.
All right. City of Kerrville proclamation, whereas on January 1st, 2024, the Kerrville Fire Department Emergency Medical Services, EMS, has provided outstanding patient care to this community for 30 years. The Kerrville Fire Department took over EMS on January 1st, 1994, to provide advanced life support with 2 24-hour ambulances and 1 8-hour transfer ambulance, and staffing 60 members with 17 per shift for the citizens of Kerrville, Ingram, and Kerr County. And whereas currently EMS provides mobile intensive care with at least 1 paramedic for the 1,100 square miles of Kerr County, with 3 24-hour ambulances and 1 peak ambulance, and staffing 81 members with 24-hour per shift. And whereas in 1994, EMS responded to 3,500 calls for service. In 2023, EMS responded to over 8,500 calls for service, with the fire department responding to a total of 11,441 calls for service. And whereas Kerrville Fire Department EMS earned the Department of State Health Services EMS Provider of the Year, EMS provides progressive pre-hospital care under the medical direction of Dr. Stephen Harper with the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio Department of Emergency Health Services. And whereas Kerrville Fire Department EMS is proud to serve the citizens and visitors in Kerrville with empathy and compassion to deliver outstanding patient care. Now therefore I, Judy Eichner, Mayor of the City of Kerrville, Texas, do hereby proclaim January 24 as the 30th anniversary of the Kerrville Fire Department Emergency Medical Services here in Kerrville, Texas, and I encourage all citizens to join me in celebrating the service of the EMS personnel and acknowledging their skill, their commitment, and their dedication. We can't thank you guys enough. So we'll, where are pictures?
Yeah,
We need-
to say a few words.
Okay.
So, while I have them up there, this won't take more than 30 minutes. So, on January 1st, 1994, the City of Kerrville Fire Department took over EMS from a private ambulance service for the citizens of Kerrville, Ingram, and Kerr County. Fire Chief Raymond Holloway, Assistant Chief Raymond Tennyson, and EMS Coordinator Ron Derrick led the charge to create a city-owned EMS. There were many concerned and engaged citizens about the transition, to include the late Dr. William Allen. The team hired Dr. Otis Lane as a medical director to oversee patient care and to ensure KFD could achieve the mission. Fire Chief Raymond Holloway wrote, "In 3 short months, we had to purchase 4 ambulances, hire 16 people, order equipment, medical supplies, and learn how to run an ambulance service. This was a monumental task, but on January 1st, 1994, we took over EMS operation. We were lucky. We were able to hire some experienced firefighter paramedics to start the EMS. A few minutes after midnight, we made our first call and have not stopped since. The first full year of operations, we made 3,500 calls. Interesting, the initial setup cost was $212,000 to include 3 ambulances, equipment to include a cardiac monitor, EMT course, uniforms, and billing software for $600. On January 1st, 1994, the first call at 12:14 was an emergency transfer from Sid Peterson to San Antonio. The second call was a fall at Hilltop Nursing Home. So the rest is history, as the Kerrville Fire Department responded to over 225,000 calls for service since 1994, to include fire, first responder, and EMS calls for service. Since '94, we have expanded the pre-hospital medicine and continue to provide outstanding care for our citizens. We are very progressive with the administration of over 30 medications, rapid sequence intubation, 12-lead EKG, IO infusion, whole blood, and not to mention, one ambulance costs more than the initial startup cost in '94. Patient care has improved over the years and now is driven by data, research, and evidence-based medicine. Continue the great work of Dr. Lane, or Dr. Curtis Ferguson from '98 to '01. Dr. Stephen Nail had the longest tenure from '01 to 2022, and recently under the medical direction of Dr. Stephen Harper. I will close with reading a letter from EMS Coordinator Ron Derrick to the Fire Chief Raymond Holloway regarding the proposal for EMS. We feel the quality of service the citizens are receiving in police and fire fields are one of the best in the state, but there is a third side to the public safety triangle missing. That is a top quality EMS service. We take great pride in our city and county, and we think the people deserve the very best in every facet of public protection. As Chief, we are very thankful for the trust in our community that showed us 30 years ago to provide EMS for the citizens of Kerrville and Kerr County. We're proud for our community, holding up our core values of professionalism, integrity, compassion, and teamwork. Thank you, and congratulations. Many more to go.
I'm going to make you stand up here a little longer. So before we do the pictures, I want you to tell us who you are and say it loud so everybody can hear. And also how long you have been with EMS, with the fire department, that information. So we'll switch it around. We'll start down at the other end with the chief.
Been with the Kerrville Fire Department for 26 and a half years. Started in '97, right after we took over EMS.
I'm Dan Foy, currently a driver. I've been with the department for 9 years.
David Patnott, I'm a firefighter. I've been with the department for about 13 months.
Mason Lindner, been with the department for about 5 years now.
Joel Bryant, been with the department going on 17 years.
Stephen Boyd, Deputy Fire Chief. I've been with the department for 21 years.
Lucas Potter, EMS Supervisor. I've been here for 8 years.
Billy Williams, Battalion Chief, been here 23 years.
Daniel Fitzsimon, driver, been here about 15 years.
Monty Johnson, Lieutenant, been here 26 years.
Lieutenant Mitchell Ray, February will be 39 years. Yeah, so Lester and I tested together, and we started about a month apart. So these are the senior guys.
Leslie Hoosier, Battalion Chief, 39 years.
Wow. So you guys were here when the EMS started.
Well turned career.
Yes. So, fantastic. All right, who wants to hold this? And we'll get some pictures.
No, y'all were here. No,
No, we're
you
here.
got the full true
That's-
30 years. So.
See everybody. Something before the end of the day. Just a little. There we go. Perfect.
And we should introduce this lady. Who does she belong to?
That's my wife.
He said that quickly. That's good. All right. Please turn around, shake the hands of some council members, and thank you, thank you, thank you all.
Monty, can we do an honorable mention for Scott Brooks?
Pardon?
Can we do an honorable mention for Scott Brooks? Ray Brooks is no longer.
So I think I know your
Yes.
Oh, good.
And I hear stories about Miss Herring and her mother all the time
Good.
on Central Street and San Angelo,
Oh,
Bowie
good.
Street.
Bowie, that's right. Good.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you kindly.
Yay, thank you so much.
About Battalion Chief Ray Crooks. So he passed away. He was here prior to that, actually back in the 70s. When he was here, all those years, many of us worked underneath him, and always he served the department very proudly. So we're always proud to work for him all those years. He passed away. How many? 8? No. 6. in 2006. So thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all again.
Small note. One small note about the EMS coming to Kerrville. 30 years ago, I was sitting in your chair, and it was a big deal. And these guys pulled it off wonderfully. We were all scared to death when the changeover came, but they handled it beautifully. So I'm very proud to have been a very small part of this 30 years ago.
Thank you for your part. All right, we could just go home after that. All right, we're ready for the Visitors Citizens Forum. Shelley?
Yes, we have two.
Okay.
Barbara Burton.
Right here, Barbara.
Okay.
That's okay.
That's
Go
fine.
ahead.
Barbara Burton, 235 Guadalupe Street, Kerrville. I arrived here in Kerrville in 1989 and became a founding member of what would become the Riverside Nature Center. I graduated from Leadership Kerr County in 1994 and subsequently served as environmental liaison on the steering committee for the next 5 years. I served on and chaired the city's Environmental Education Committee for a number of years, and more recently served on the River Corridor Committee for the Kerrville 2050 plan. With that said, I believe it's clear that I have dedicated a tremendous amount of my life over the past 35 years in an effort to help educate my fellow citizens and hopefully enhance the cherished yet vanishing natural environment of Kerrville. I'm here tonight to talk about a travesty. In my opinion, an act of environmental terrorism. In the early morning hours of Saturday, August 5th, 2023, one of our 200-plus-year-old perfectly healthy heritage oak trees was brutally chainsawed to death and promptly erased from this earth. I'm not on any kind of social media sites, but I understand that there were many, many folks that were terribly upset about the event. It's probably a good thing that I was out of town, as I'm certain that I would have been either severely injured from the chainsaw and or arrested. That was 5.5 months ago. I had hoped tonight to lavish praise to this council for finally having created a real tree ordinance to protect what's left of our heritage trees. Instead, it was brought to my attention this past weekend that the process has not even begun. Evidently, there was a workshop today. I guess it has now begun. I'm well aware that creating and passing an ordinance is a lengthy process, but had we started the process last fall, we could be nearing the second reading by now. I'm both angry and disappointed, but more than anything, I'm heartbroken that you, the elected leaders of this community, many of you I've known for years, haven't addressed this issue as the priority that it deserves to be. I pray that once the process begins, it will be addressed with the sense of urgency that is unfortunately evident. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George Baruti.
George, before you speak, Barbara, we did give staff authority tonight to start on that.
George Baruti, 1616 Glen Road, and just, I wasn't planning to talk about that, but if you all go to Google Maps and look in that part of the town where that was, I don't know who was in control of this, and I'm having a feeling that Mr. Herring might have had something to do with it, but it has a little marker that says the former founder's tree. It is kind of cool to see it. But anyways, just saying. So what I came to talk about was something you guys had, I guess, in executive session a little bit ago. It's more questions than it is anything else. It's about the water permit issue. So the questions are kind of, why has the city been publicly stating that we were in compliance with something that apparently we weren't? I guess we didn't have a permit. Maybe we did, I don't really know, but apparently we signed something in December. And then, as the article says, we, the next day, went ahead and became non-compliant with the letter of that permit. Don't really understand why. Kind of looking for some answers there. Why did we obtain that permit when we knew we were going to go ahead and, violate it the very next day. And I'm kind of confused a little bit by the quote from the consulting attorney. In the article, it said something, it was talking about form and substance. If I was understanding it correctly, he's basically saying that we know we're violating the letter of this permit. We're hoping to change it to match the so-called intent, I guess, of the water permit. If this is some like act of civil disobedience, that's okay. Just own it and tell us what you're doing so that we can maybe be a part of it. Otherwise, it just looks like we're actually, it just looks like anarchy. And in the name of, you're using us in that. So people in the outside the city view people inside the city as what you all are doing. So I don't really like to be considered someone who's just kind of unilaterally doing stuff, but that's what it appears what we're doing as a city. And I still am really not sure why we're doing that. So anyways, it's been raised, because I don't even understand why, what's the big deal going from stage 3 to stage 2? What was the issue involved in staying in stage 3? It's during the winter, nobody's really watering. If it has to do with revenue collection, then we got other problems with our rate structure, and this is probably the way to deal with it. I don't know. I mean, this is visitors forum, can't really answer any questions, but it really would be nice if publicly you guys would put out some answers to these questions that people are wondering about. Thanks.
That's the end of the citizen speakers.
Thank you. Mr. Brody, I would also suggest and recommend that you make an appointment with one of our city staff and get answers to those questions. All right, we are ready for the consent agenda. We have several items on there. Is there anyone who wishes to pull an item?
I need to pull item 4F.
4F.
4F,
Yes.
minutes, okay.
I'm going to request to pull 4A and 4D. So unless there's any others, Mayor, I'll make a motion.
I would like to pull
Okay.
4B.
Okay.
So we have A, B, D, and F that we are pulling.
I'll move to approve 4C and 4E of the consent
Second.
agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. Thank you. It is approved. All right, let's take them in order. 4A.
And Madam Mayor, did you want me to go ahead and read those into record?
Let's do that. Let's do that. Thank you.
Consent agenda 4A. Municode LLC, FKA Municipal Code Corporation, a division of Civic Plus, annual full service supplemental subscription for ordinance codification. 4B, public work for hire art agreement between City of Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau and Garden Planet LLC. 4C, Texas Main Street Locally Designated Program 2024 contract between the Texas Historical Commission and the City of Kerrville. 4D, ratification of Loop 534 well, Meadowview well, and ASR 2 well rehabilitations. 4E, City Council workshop minutes, January 9th, 2024. 4F, City Council meeting minutes, January 9th, 2024.
Okay, let's start with 4A. Roman?
Okay, thank you. This is a subscription. I'm trying to clarify the amount that we're actually paying. It's a small thing, but I think we have the amount in excess of $150 on here. I'm trying to figure out if I'm wrong where the extra money is coming from. I'm looking at the breakdown that's on the summary statement and on the expenditure required on the cover page of the agenda bill. What I think might have just been an accident is that we included the $150 discount into the math to come up with the 5,300 instead of 5,150.
What
So,
is-
so if there's some clarification that I can get on that, then otherwise that'll be good.
So the annual hosting fee is $1,080. They gave us a discount because our contract begins in March of 2024, and since we're going to go ahead and go this way, if you approve, then they did give us that discount of 150. Is that what you're?
I know we have the discount, but it doesn't look like the expenditure that we're approving is reflected with that discount.
Okay, I'm not quite understanding, Roland. Can you do
Okay.
that again?
Yes, I can. I'll try to do it a little bit better. So we have, so let's start with this. I'm looking at the summary statement and the quote that was given to us. Okay, so let's start with the supplement fee, because that's the easiest one. That's the $4,250. Those match up. Then there is a $900. Where is it? Yeah, $900. That's supposed to be there. I don't know where that's what I'm trying to figure out, where we're getting 5,330 instead of 5,150 that's shown on the quote. And I had this question too, and a couple people had conflicting answers. That's why I'm bringing it before council now
Oh,
to figure
I
out.
was never contacted.
No, not you. I didn't contact you as the city secretary. And I didn't think a budget question would be for you. And the agenda bill,
Yeah, I submitted the agenda bill.
right.
Mhm.
So do y'all see where I'm coming from? The total is different from on the quote is different from the total that's on the summary statement.
So you're saying the total on the summary statement should be 5,150.
Which is, right. Because if you subtract the 150 discount from the 5,330,
Okay,
we should get to close to that. And that's why I'm trying to figure out where the numbers aren't adding up, because the quote's different from the summary statement, and I don't know which one's the correct number that we're approving.
The quote is the
Uh,
correct one, right? The quote is the quote, correct?
The quote is the quote, but the supplemental, so the annual hosting fee, that will be the annual hosting fee for every year. That's not gonna have the discount. That's for the initial term, the 5,000,
okay.
And then the annual recurring is.
and the annual recurring
5,150.
is $5,330. Is that what you're looking for?
So I think Mr. Rice said it correctly, that it's supposed to be 5,150, right? That's what you see?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah, so this quote right here, that's accurate, correct?
Yes, that's the initial supplemental
Yeah,
service, right, the initial term.
Yeah, so the quote is the accurate one.
There should be
there's
five-
communication on the agenda bill piece.
Yeah,
Okay.
the agenda bill shows what it's going to be every year. Correct, is the initial term on the quote,
So the initial term should be 5,000, because that's what the
$150.
No, it says the initial term on the annual recurring supplement service, the initial term is 5,000. Reoccurring, subject to the uplift, is 5,150.
Yeah, go off,
Okay.
the
Yeah,
quote is
we'll
right.
go with
Okay,
Go
so the
with
quote,
Yeah,
Yes,
there's
we'll go
just
with the quote.
yeah, go with the quote.
okay, so then I will move to approve agenda item 4A and the full service supplemental subscription in the expenditure of an initial 5,000 with a reoccurring of 5,150.
okay, Shelley, you're okay with that?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay, all right. All right, do we have a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Do
I'll
we have
second.
a second? And all in favor, raise your right hand, please. And it is approved, all right. Okay, then, 4B, I asked to have this one pulled. More than anything, I just would like to bring attention to this. I think this is going to be a fun thing for our city. Megan, would you like to explain this just a little bit? I think this
Sure.
is a
So
neat idea.
I did a presentation just to briefly go over kind of the history and what's to come. So, let's see. So first, we always like to point out that it is coming from the community when we do projects like this. So the specific action item that directed this was consider installing iconic artwork in the downtown. So as you all recall, there was an agreement that we entered into with the Kerrville Convention and Visitors Bureau last May to create the Community Arts Program. So they're required to commission major iconic works of public art, facilitate art installations, and then along with that, they do community education and outreach to promote that. So this is what we're looking to install downtown. It's an interactive kaleidoscope. The coloring will be slightly different, but this is really exciting. It will be something that people can actually look through and get the kaleidoscope experience. It has a very large viewfinder, so nobody has to get super close to it. It's going to be accessible for everybody, and we're just really excited for this to come to Kerrville as one of the first installations from the Community Arts Program. So in addition, the community piece, Kerr Arts and Cultural Center has agreed to host a really neat quilting exhibit. It's like kaleidoscope quilts. So for the month of March, they're doing kaleidoscopes and quilts. There's going to be a renowned contemporary quilt artist, Paula Nadelstern, here. She's going to be showing 10 of her quilts, along with a lot of other people that do these same types of kaleidoscope pattern quilts, along with the International Brewster Society, who's bringing they're kind of like homemade kaleidoscopes to this exhibit. In addition, there's going to be a quilt lecture with Miss Nadelstern and a adult and youth kaleidoscope making workshop.
Okay,
So
and I'm sorry, go ahead.
So the photo there is right there in front of River's Edge Gallery, and that's at the corner of Water and Washington. So staff has already relocated that bench there, and those 4 flower pots will be removed, and that is where we're looking to install it. The artist came here and just explored kind of what the best location for the kaleidoscope would be with the sunlight, and that was discovered to be the best part, and it connects our downtown to maybe a less frequented area down Water Street. So this agreement is with 3 separate parties. So we will own the art, and we're allowing it to be placed in our public right-of-way there. The facilitator in this agreement is the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Community Arts Program. They are the ones who actually purchasing and facilitating the installation of this piece. And then Garden Planet is the artist's LLC. His name is Eddie Phillips, who's going to design and install this kaleidoscope. So tonight with this agreement, we're just asking that you all authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the agreement.
And when can we expect it?
So we're hoping that they are going to be installing the first weekend in February. So the 3rd and 4th weekend is what we're shooting for. So they will actually be building it on site that weekend.
I think one of our council members really should be thanked for initiating this idea. I think the one sitting to my left here.
Yes.
And so thank you, Joe. I think this is just a neat thing for our city.
Yes, we're
And
very
thank you
excited.
to our CVB for taking the ball and running with it, and thank you, Megan. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have
All
any
right.
questions?
yeah, anybody? All right, I move that we authorize the city manager to finalize and execute this agreement. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, right hand, and it passes. Something to look forward to downtown. That's great. Okay, 4D. Brent, Roman, was this one yours also?
Yes, it was. I would like some clarification from staff, and I think it would also be worth, I'm going to ask to talk about more of this and how this came about one-on-one, maybe if it needs to, but trying to figure out, this is a ratification of expenditures for wells that were taken due to unforeseen circumstances, and I'm trying to figure out when these circumstances came to light and when they were made. And yeah, let's start with that, I guess.
Stuart, you have some answers for us?
Yes, ma'am. And let me get to the, since it's actually an agenda bill there on two of the wells. One of the last one was, okay. So the Loop 534 well, it, I think I had the exact date on it, on August the 23rd, or August of last year is when it went down. So it quit producing water, and we didn't know why. It takes a little while to get the operators or the well services out here. It turned out that that particular well had casing, let's see which, is it this is the Meadowview well. They both had similar problems. Meadowview well actually had holes in the casing. And so when they pulled it, they found out that we had to replace the casing. When we did that, the drive shafts were also not in very good shape. And then the well pump itself was old. And so we said, well, we ought to change all of that. Then the Loop 530 ASR went down, similar taste. That one, actually, the casing broke in half. You just wanted the dates. That particular one.
You're good. You're good. Go ahead. Sorry.
ASR, when it broke, the casing actually split. It fell off, and so the only thing that was hanging there was the drive shaft. You know, we couldn't tell that. You can't tell any of this stuff until you pull the pump. So it's a little bit of a progression as you're learning these things and trying to figure out what the problem is. So you find out that nothing's happening. You're not producing water. You contact your well vendor and say, hey, come out and pull my well for me. Let's see what's going on. It could be any number of things. It could be the pump, the motor, electrical. And this particular one, it was both of these two were casing problems.
Gotcha. And the expenditures were made, were they last year, or was this recent?
So the expenditures were approved last year, or we needed to get on his list because it's been hard to get components, and that's why part of the reason it's taken a little while. So on the Meadowview well, we decided to take the Loop 534 pump. It all took a lot of thinking to figure out the way we wanted to do it. We had that cone of depression issue that we talked about during the summer last year. We said, well, in order to get the cone of depression right, let's size the pumps a little bit smaller in the Loop 534 well. So we moved that pump over to Meadowview because we knew it was a stronger well and could handle a bigger pump. So when we did that, that was the first expenditure for $14,143. And then we went ahead and bought the second pump, which was a little bit smaller than what was in Loop 534. And we put it in there, so hopefully we've negated the cone of depression. We really won't know until it runs for a while. And then on the same thing with ASR2, we looked at doing a turbine-driven pump versus a submersible pump, evaluated all the options, and basically it really came down to cost, about $80,000 savings to go back to the way we did and what we had in there. Though you can't store as much water with a turbine shaft pump, it was decided that, you know, for the $80,000 savings, we're able to store almost as much water.
Okay. So the invoices that I saw from Moyes Incorporated, those were dated. We received them December 12th is at least when they were dated. I think our stamp of receipt was like the 14th. And then I noticed that the due date for us to pay them was January 11th. So would it have been possible for this to come to council a couple of days beforehand? And like, I'm assuming they obviously were paid on time. We didn't pay them late. So would it have been possible for us to bring this to us and notify us of this circumstance too?
Well, if we would, that was just for the payment of the bill. So we're actually ratifying the purchase of it. So that we didn't go through the normal purchasing procedure because it was an emergency and we had to get everything ordered. So the purchasing, we could have, we were waiting on the ASR 3 so we could do it all at the same time. That's why we brought it to you now instead of earlier, to kind of package them all up and have this discussion when we're talking about all three wells instead of kind of incrementalism. So y'all got to see the benefit of the whole picture instead of just one at a time.
Okay, thank you. Last question I had, did this possibly have anything to do with the TTHM violation that we just had to send out a notice for? Or is that what, this isn't related to that?
Well, groundwater doesn't have TTHMs in it, and so that's a byproduct of surface water and chlorination of that surface water. So in a circular logic, yes, it could have something to do with that. But no, they're not. That is not what caused any of these wells to have problem. It was just an aging component. So no, it really doesn't. It's just kind of a byproduct of the.
Okay.
Of this
No, you're good. While we were on the topic of the ratification of this expenditure for it, that's why I just was going to bring it up and was curious if that's what we were looking at for that. But, okay, thank you, answered all my questions, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stuart. Ready for a motion?
Yes, Mayor, sorry, I have no motion, that was all the questions I had, so thank you for that.
But we need a motion. We pulled it.
Correct.
So are you going to make a motion?
No, I mean, sure, I can make a motion, I move to ratify the, expense related to the well, rehabilitation.
What is your motion? I'm sorry, Roman.
Yeah, I read exactly what it's under the recommended action. It's to ratify the expense related to the well rehabilitation.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, raise your right hand, and it is unanimous. Thank you. Brenda, 4F.
Yes, and I actually pulled this not because there's a correction to the minutes, but because I feel like there's a need for a correction to the video, and at least get it on video tonight, that this particular item 4A, when Councilmember Garcia made his motion, that was seconded, this is on 4A, ordinance number 2023-34. Councilmember Garcia made a motion, and it was seconded by Councilmember Herring, and it was approved by unanimous vote. But when you actually made the motion, you made it for ordinance number 2023-24 instead of 34. So I want the video record to reflect that correction. So I don't think that there's really, I need to make a motion regarding corrections to the minutes, but I do want to make a motion that I guess we acknowledge the error in the video from the January 9th meeting.
Sure.
Okay.
But I think we probably need to have a motion
Okay,
to
so
make that correction.
to correct the minutes, okay, I,
Want to correct the minutes?
Yes.
So if we correct the minutes, then the action we took would be void.
yeah,
What
see,
normally
see,
I
the
think you're
minutes are
getting at,
correct.
right? I think what you're getting at is what I said was incorrect. I said 24 instead of 34 accidentally.
Mhm.
But usually what we do go off of is what is the understanding of the council
What's
with
the
the motion that was made.
intent?
Right, and I think we all understood, even though I spoke incorrectly to said 24 instead of 34,
Mhm.
we all knew I was adopting that motion or that ordinance.
Yes, so
So
this
I
is
don't think
just
we
to
need to
reflect.
Change the minutes. You don't think we need to change the minutes?
No, I
Just-
don't. I think we just need it reflected on the video.
Yeah,
Mike,
that's good.
are you okay with that we do it that way?
So you just want it on record and video that, yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay,
So
thank you.
did you want to go ahead and motion to approve the minutes as
Yes,
presented?
as presented.
Second?
Okay, okay, we have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand, and it is approved. All right, that takes care of the consent agenda. And let's go to 5A, the first ordinance. Kelly, if you'll read that in?
Ordinance number 2024-01, an ordinance ordering a special election to be held on May 4th, 2024, for the purpose of submitting propositions to the voters for proposed amendments to the city charter. Said election to be held in conjunction with the city's general election, establishing early voting times and places, and providing for public review. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
Okay. All right, council, questions, comments?
We have Mr. Hayes up if he's,
Okay, well, Mike, do you have something you'd like to share with us on this?
Well, let me just explain a little bit about what we're doing here, what I'm asking y'all to do. Of course, the ordinance orders a special election, which will be part of the general election, and then it'll set out the amendments. I think it's important to note that the amendments follow the Charter Review Commission's report. I give them great kudos again for the work that they've done. I think it's also helpful to let you know and the public know that the ordinance for the amendments is broken into two parts. Measures, which sets out the specific amendments, redlined, and then those amendments are then put into propositions. I want to be clear that some of the measures contain the same subject matter, if you will, and so they might be cobbled together into a single proposition. And so if you read the ordinance, I think it'll think it'll be clear, you may have to read 3 or 4 pages into it to figure out how that, kind of how that works. But assuming this passes tonight, it'll come back at the first meeting in February for second reading. And this ordinance, along with the Charter Review Commission's report, and then the full charter as redlined, is on our website, in the library, in the city secretary's office for review.
Okay. Council, any questions, comments?
I have one comment and one minor change that I'm going to request council to consider. It's on page 11, and it's it's Proposition F, which is actually not on page 11. It's on page, I think it's 15.
What measure?
Measure F.
I've got it on page 11
Page
of
11.
17.
Proposition, I'm sorry, I keep getting confused. Proposition F on page 15.
Okay.
The actual language that's going to go on the ballot.
Okay.
This is, this is regarding the amounts to be paid to council members. So if you look, for example, look at Proposition D right above it, and it says it's an amendment to the charter to increase the term of office from 2 to 3 years, and you don't need to look any further, but the word increase is what I'm focused on. I would like Proposition F to reflect that as well, since it's an amendment to increase the amounts paid to council members for the mayor and changing the payment to be monthly rather than per meeting. I just want that to be reflected and clear so that when the voters go to the polls, they understand that just like Proposition D, they're voting to increase the amount that's being paid rather than just using the word revise the amount that's being paid. So I think it provides more clarity to that. So that would be the only change I would request to make if a majority of council is willing to entertain that.
I'll second that.
Okay, I'll make that in the form of a motion so you could gather that. Is everybody clear, at least on what I'm...
Instead of the word revising, you would say increasing?
Increasing, yes. So, does anybody, before I make a motion to adopt the ordinance, does anybody else have anything? So I don't interrupt you?
I personally like revising, but that's my opinion.
All right, and then my only comment to make on this was we undergo a process that's clear with the Charter Review Commission undergoing their work and then providing recommendations to us. And at our last meeting, we considered all of the measures and the proposals that they made to change the charter, and I didn't vote for all of them. I voted against putting some of them on here, but I will say that now that that's passed and the council has decided what will be going on the ballot, this ordinance is only to call the election, the special election, so the voters can vote on it. So although I do not agree with all of the propositions that are going to be proposed to make the changes, I do agree that the voters have an opportunity to vote on them. So I will be voting in favor of this ordinance. So with that, Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance number 2022-01 with an amendment to page 15 on Proposition F to strike revising and insert increasing.
You mean 2024?
Wait, did I do the same thing again? Hey, let's do that over. I move to adopt ordinance number 2024-01 and make an amendment to page 15 and strike revising and insert increasing on Proposition F. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we vote, Mike, on this, is any issue with that?
No, I'll make that change.
Okay, all right.
Sir?
All in favor, raise your right hand. And it is opposed. We have 4-1 on that motion. 4, 1 against. Okay, 5B.
Ordinance number 2024-02, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of money in principal amount of City of Kerrville, Texas tax note series 2024, securing the payment thereof by authorizing the levy of an annual ad valorem tax and approving and authorizing the execution of a paying agent registrar agreement, a purchase letter, and all other instruments and procedures related thereto. And then we had a proviso of $2 million.
Yes,
Yes.
good evening. Just a follow-up to Chief Maloney's presentation, workshop today. As you know, we've been talking about this $2 million issuance of tax notes for a few months. And so before you today is the ordinance issuing those notes. So before we moved forward and I introduced Ann Berger, who's here with Hilltop Securities, and then also we have Jay Juarez with our bond counsel here as well to answer any questions anyone might have that was outside of our lane or that specifically related to legal issues with the ordinance. But I did want to point out that the blanks that you saw in the ordinance that was attached to your packet on Friday was because we were still reviewing bids that came in on the 16th, and so it takes a little while to finalize those documents. It has been updated. There are no substantial changes to that other than adding the $2 million, the ordinance number, and then the recommendation for the issuance of the funder that Ann will talk to. So I will be happy to answer questions after we allow Ann to present her findings through this process and any other questions, and then legal counsel as well. Ann?
Thank you. Honorable Mayor and council members, for the record, my name is Ann Berger Interkin, and I'm with Hilltop Securities, and we serve as the City of Kerrville's financial advisor, and I appreciate the opportunity to be before you this evening. When Ms. Behrens called and explained that you were seeking financing for fire trucks and provided the amount, $2 million, and we talked about what the term was going to be because it's so important to make sure you match what we call the asset liability match. You don't want to issue debt for longer than the fire trucks are going to have a useful life. So we knew that the bond issue was going to be a little bit smaller, $2 million, and it was going to be shorter, somewhere between 5 to 7 years. And so with that, we talked about the option of doing a direct placement. We have not done a direct placement since I see the members on the council that we've been before you. So before we get into this, I thought it might be helpful just to talk about the differences between the types of bonds you've seen before and a direct placement tax note. So an open market is, like I said, the bond issues that I've been before you. That is what we've done. It's a public offering. It can be done through competitive and negotiated. We have done both methods for Kerrville, and it has some additional requirements, and that is because they are publicly offered and they can be traded on the secondary market. A direct placement is basically a very limited distribution to potentially one or just a few investors. Generally, we see banks are very interested in that. They buy them and they hold them in their portfolios to maturity. Generally, they're not trading on the secondary market, and they can generally be accomplished very quickly and very efficiently, and also take less time. So just to kind of put the two side by side, with an open market, you have the preparation of a disclosure document. We have to get ratings. We have to go through the full rating process. An underwriter needs to be selected. Sometimes they have a little bit lower interest rate than what you might get from a direct placement, but the costs of issuance are higher because with an open market bond issue, you have to pay for the rating, you have to pay for the underwriter, you have to pay for the underwriter's counsel, and so even though the two, if you put them side by side, it may show a little bit lower interest rate, but when we factor in the costs, the two are very close generally. It can take more time to execute, and it generally comes with a continuing disclosure requirement as part of your SEC 15C212 filing. Well, a direct placement, generally, like I said, it's a bank or a very small number. The disclosure document, an official statement, is not required. A rating is generally not required, and minimal due diligence throughout the process. One of the reasons, too, that a direct placement seemed to really align with the goals and objectives of this transaction is that banks generally like debt instruments that are shorter than 10 years. So we knew that there would be bank interest just because of the size and the duration. As I talked about just a moment ago, you might see a higher interest rate, but once the cost of issuance are factored in, generally they're very close. Less time for execution, and generally there is not a formal continuing disclosure process. So the bid solicitation, on this page, we have all the banks. There were 51 banks who received your term sheet and bid form, and the ones that we've highlighted in the yellow are banks that have locations in Kerrville. We worked in a very collaborative effort with your staff. We wanted to make sure that all the banks in Kerrville received the documentation and had an opportunity to bid. And the other banks on here are banks that in the state of Texas are through issues in the state of Texas have bid on transactions before and demonstrated an interest. One of the great options I believe that you have with the direct placement that you don't necessarily have with the open market is that we have full discretion to draft the bid form so that we can maybe get bids for 2 or more options. And we thought that that was very important. Again, in working in a collaborative effort with your staff, we weren't really sure what term we thought would best align with the useful life of this asset. So what we decided to do was to put out one bid for a 5-year option that had no call date and a second bid that was a 7-year amortization but allowed for the bonds to be paid off in 5 years at par with no penalty. So that way we sort of got a little bit longer duration, but we could also compare the little apples to apples between the two. The other thing that the bid form does is we ask the purchaser, potential purchaser, to make sure they have included any costs associated with this. Many times you'll have banks that want to have their bank counsel review the documents. Sometimes it's an outside bank counsel, so they pass that fee through the process. In our solicitation, we did receive 5 bids. The Bank and Trust, Amagi Bank, Capital One Public Financing, Simmons, and Webster Bank. And I understand these numbers are small, but to put in perspective, the low bid came from Webster Bank. On the scenario A, with the 5-year amortization, they proposed a rate of 3.95. And on scenario B, which is the 7-year amortization with a 5-year call, they offered a rate of 4.05.
Pretty good.
And so on the transaction summary, we wanted to highlight for you the outcome of the two. The 5-year TIC, true interest cost, is a 3.94. Average annual debt service is just under $450,000 with total interest of about $245,000. The average life, and I want to highlight this, is 3.1 years, and the projected tax rate impact is about $0.015. On the 7-year option, the true interest cost is a 4.04. The average annual debt service is about $334,000, and the total interest is just under $340,000. And the average life on this one is just under 4.2 years, and the tax rate impact is about 1.1 pennies. And so I will convey to you staff recommendation. Clearly, if you have any questions, I'll defer to Ms. Behrens on that. But staff is recommending the 7-year scenario, again, going back to the useful life of the assets. So the fire trucks have a much longer useful life than the 5-year option and with the 3.1-year average life scenario. So in a goal to align and achieve a better asset liability match, the staff is recommending the 7-year option. In the 7-year option, there's $2 million for the par amount. The cost of issuance are about $43,600. If we were doing this as an open market bond issue, we projected that the cost of issuance would have been $91,750. So the cost of issuance and underwriter's discount would have been more than double what the cost of issuance are for this. You can see the projected coupon and yield, as well as the average annual debt service and the true interest cost of the 405. And then moving to summarizing this, we, along with staff, recommend that the City Council considers the bid from Webster Bank as the purchaser. Staff recommends the 7-year amortization for the asset liability match. One of the very important steps in our process, and one of the reasons it took just a little bit longer to get all the information from you, is one of the steps after we do our original due diligence and analysis and run the numbers, we do make sure we send it to bond counsel, to Jay, because we absolutely want to make sure that the bid that was submitted was completely in compliance with all the bid specifications. And so we worked with Jay, he reviewed everything, helped us to make sure everything was in compliance. So I think that's important for your consideration today. One of the things I think is interesting is that we had requested a February 15th, 29 par call date, which means it's solely the discretion of the city, and when you pay it off, there's no premium to pay it off. What is interesting is that their bid allowed for a call date actually 1 year less, but they didn't charge anything more for that. We evaluated the bid not on the call dates because we felt like it was very important for us to have an apples to apples comparison, but they had the lowest interest cost, and in addition to the lower interest cost, you have one less year before that you could actually call the bonds. So we think that gives the city more flexibility and more optionality. They were one of the banks in their bid specifications that has in-house legal counsel, so they're going to do that. There was no extra charge, where some of the banks did have an extra charge for that. And so, you know, just this process, we want to make sure, again, I say this, but your staff is amazing. I know they have so many responsibilities, and this is something that's a very small piece of all the work that they do, but they are always so responsive and getting back to us and guiding us through the process, and we are very appreciative of that. Mr. Rice, Ms. Behrens, and Ms. Rodriguez. Also want to thank Jay. You know, the legal documents and the process and the confirming the bid are so important to the process. And just to thank council again, we very much appreciate being a part of your team and having the opportunity to help you with this. And so if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
I have one, and we only had one bank from Kerrville put in a bid proposal. I know why another bank didn't do it, but we only had one from Kerrville.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, council?
Thank you very much.
Am I correct to understand though, this probably, unless you do know, probably from Ms. Burns, are we right now in about $115 million in debt obligations? Is that where we're standing at about right now?
Without looking, I wouldn't want to speak to that, but it's somewhere, I know in the neighborhood of, I know it's over 100 with the public safety facility, yes.
Right.
But that one's 45 million by itself.
I'm sorry?
That one's 45 million by itself, so
Right.
yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
I can get that number and get it to you, of course, and it's in the budget document.
I was referring to the number I
Yeah.
remembered on part of the cover sheets of the budget.
is,
It was
yes.
like 115 or 114. So, okay. Thank you.
All right, council, what is your pleasure?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to state that we do have one citizen speaker.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, any comments before we call the speaker? All right, and that will be?
George Baruti.
George Brewery, 1616 Glen Road. So my questions aren't so much about, I mean, I'm sure everybody did a wonderful job issuing the debt, you know, that's great. But if I'm understanding this correctly, this is not increasing our fire truck fleet. This is replacing two trucks. Is that correct? Is that what we're doing? Okay. So asset liability question aside, you're allowed to borrow money as long as the money, you know, the debt payback outlasts the life of the trucks outlasts that. But what you're really doing is a maintenance operation here. You're maintaining your fire trucks. And public safety, we didn't so much increase the coverage of our public safety. We pretty much updated a building that we had. It's a great new building and all that kind of stuff. But we're continuing to borrow money to pay our maintenance and operations. That is a huge red flag as far as a budget situation. You know, I've done this once before, but this is where you cue up Wimpy from the Popeyes cartoon, where he says, "I'd gladly pay for a fire truck on Tuesday if I could have it today." So I don't know if anybody's even aware of the situation, but it's not just the amount of debt that we have; it's the amount of debt that we're using increasingly using to cover our maintenance and operations. It's no different than borrowing money to pay your rent, which would never be a real good thing. So I would say you need new fire trucks. Okay, it seems relatively small, $2 million. Fine, do that. But as part of that package, you have got to get a true audit of our facilities and vehicle maintenance online. We keep talking about it. I hear them talking about it. Oh, we're looking at it in phases. We don't have time for phases because we're pushing these financial obligations down the road. It's going to come bite us in the butt, not too soon, not too distant future. So please, I implore you, take a look at how much of your maintenance and operations budget is being paid by debt. And if it's a way to get around the cap that's put on your maintenance and operations portion of your tax rate, which this does. I don't know if you realize that, but when you put stuff into the debt, you're allowed to increase the debt rate to meet your debt obligations. There's a cap on how much of your maintenance and operations property tax you can do. So if this is just us working around a legislative cap, again, it's not a good sign for our budget and for our sustainability of that. So please look at that.
Chief, would you like to say a few words?
Just to clarify one position on that, so with the workshop that we had earlier back in October, the plan is really a fire apparatus replacement plan that is sustainable for the future, both financially and also that we can use operationally. So we are, with the purchase of the two, yes, we are replacing two of our older in the fleet in the primary response, but we will be managing a fleet of +1 after we purchase this. So this is not a reserve. So there will be two reserve apparatus out there for repairs and maintenance. So we can continue to maintain our operations as a fire department. And so I just wanted to clarify that one position there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, council, are we ready to vote on this?
I'll move, Mayor, that we approve ordinance number 2024-02 on first and only reading and authorize staff to complete issuance of tax notes as described by the ordinance.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand.
Do we need to fill in the blank?
I believe we have filled that in with the,
Right, I to be clear, it's for $2 million.
yes.
Right.
Are we good the way we've done it here, Mike, or do we don't need to do any more? Do we need to mention that in the,
Yes, in the motion.
In the
It needs
motion,
to be
okay.
included in the motion, yes, ma'am.
so, Brenda, if,
Oh, okay, to approve ordinance number 2024-02 on first and only reading and authorize staff to complete the issuance of $2 million in tax notes as described by the ordinance.
Second.
we have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. And it is unanimous. Thank you very much, and Chief, congratulations there. 6A,
Resolution number 02, 2024, resolution supporting the application of Freedom's Path, Kerrville 2 Limited Partnership to construct affordable rental housing pursuant to the Low Income Housing Tax Credit Program administered by the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. And we do have 4 citizen speakers signed up.
Madam Mayor, I can get things kicked off here
okay,
if you'd like.
we that's fine, go ahead. I was distracted.
That's all right, that's all right. We do have the applicant here tonight, and they have a short presentation as a part of that. But just for a quick summation, this is a request for a 9% tax credit application at the Veterans Facility at 3602 Memorial Boulevard. Back in 2019, this request came before this body and a resolution was approved at that time. However, the funding didn't materialize, and so they had to wait that 5 years, and now they can reapply, and they are back again for it. And with that, I will turn it over to Miss Robbie Meyer, who is a principal at ARCS Advantage. And Miss Meyer, we're working through this, but I'm gonna put you over there. And she's gonna go over her presentation and the request from the council.
I'm going to make this quick. There's a couple of speakers that want to speak with me. My name is Robbie Meyer. I'm with ARCS Advantage. I'm the consultant for Freedom's Path at Kerrville 2. We do have a phase 1 that we put in place. I'm not going to go through my criteria here, so I'm going to skip through this. The tax credit program is a federal program through the IRS, and it is a public-private partnership. And it affords us, well, back up one. It affords us state dollars, or it is administered through the state, but we are getting private dollars through the state, and that is what we will actually be using. It is privately funded. We are proposing right now 58 units, one residential building with 58 efficiency units and one office community building, with all of the units being for families of veterans under 60% of area median income. There is the proposed development will be next to the phase 1, and we will have all Energy Star appliances within the units. And here is where I really come into this. We turned in our pre-applications on January the 5th. Our full applications are due on March the 1st. Awards are made in July. We'll close on development on or before the end of March, and then construction will begin in April. Whoop. Okay, here's what we are here to ask for. This program is based on score, and the highest scoring application in each region wins the mark. That was one of our problems in 2019, as he already mentioned. We didn't make that mark in 2019. So the two things that we need from the city, one is a support resolution, which is what we are asking for tonight, and also a $250 financial contribution, which we are asking for a waiver of development fees. Those are two scoring items. The first is the second highest scoring item, and the second is a 1-point item. Both of those, every point in this scoring criteria matters, and so we really can't give up any points. Those are the two things we ask for you, and that's what we're here in front of you tonight. I've got a couple of people that want to speak. One is our general partner, and they run the first phase, and I'll let them speak to you on behalf of that program.
Good evening. I'm Gary Knoller. I've been a resident of Kerr County and Kerrville for about 23 years. And I'd like to recognize Bill Cantrell and Vicki Marsh here. They were the first two veterans that I know of that got behind Freedom's Path 1. And the person sitting in between them there is Craig Taylor, who was a developer of that, and is one of his last projects before he retires is going to get this thing through all the necessary paces. Before I came in here tonight, I did stop off at Freedom's Path for a short time and just to kind of check in. I usually go there 2 or 3 times a month. I know many of the residents. One of the first residents that moved in there is Willie Askey. He's a World War II veteran, served in the United States Army in the South Pacific, and he was trained to operate heavy machinery and probably was involved in the creation of airfields. Anyway, some of us helped Willie move in on December 31st, 2015 at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We would have moved him in a whole lot earlier if we could have got the keys. Willie made a remark to Craig that Craig reminded me of, and I thought it was applicable. And when Willie moved into his new place, he said, "I feel like I moved from the outhouse to the penthouse." And I could probably stand here for 2 hours and talk to you, and I couldn't sum it up any better than the way Willie summed it up. And in 2 months, Willie's going to be 97 years old. And you may see him sometimes driving down the driveway, crossing Highway 27 and going down Tucker Street to the boat ramp at Flat Rock Park, because he loves sitting out there in warm weather and watching the waves on the water and listening to the birds. But Freedom's Path 1 was actually, it was one phase when it got started of 99 units, and it got cut back to 49 units because of some questions about the marketability of it at the time. And the 49 units there now are fully occupied. The last time I checked, of the 49 units, there's 43 veterans, 2 spouses of veterans, and then the remaining 4 are other people. It is preference for veterans. The takeaway tonight is that they have a waiting list, the waiting list for Freedom's Path of veterans, eligible veterans that have already pre-qualified and could move in tomorrow if they had a space. There's always around 30 and about a 2-year wait. So if questions come up as to, is there demand, the demand is there. We know the demand is there. You can fill the place up halfway right away, and then if people found out that they had eligibility, you'd probably get a whole lot more applicants. And so I want to recognize that there are several people in here. Those of you that come in here to support Freedom's Path, we give everybody a wave, because I know everybody's not going to be able to talk tonight. But as Commander the Corporal Jacob C. Like Memorial AMVETS Post 1000, we'll have the backing of all of our members. And we're always very supportive from day one. And we ask that you support this resolution in favor of Freedom's Path 2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary.
Who's next?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Nathan Vick. I'm the current site administrator for the Kerrville VA Medical Center, which is part of the South Texas VA Medical Center. I'm happy today, on behalf of Dr. Julie Flynn, our director, CEO of the facility. I just want to say a few words. She really wants to know that the VA's commitment is to serve veterans and their families, and she wants to support all efforts for this initiative, as well as the city of Kerrville. You know, I want to say, I'm not originally from here. Grew up in Minnesota, and my first officer I ever worked with actually said he was going to Kerrville, and I actually had stated, I don't know where that is. And no, they don't. I'm actually working here, and I will say that this has been the most welcoming communities I've ever been part of. And it has been a great 2 years, meet the community. A couple of you up here I've actually had an opportunity to meet. And last year I went out for the pit count. We're actually doing it this Thursday with the social workers, with point in time. And I was blown away with the amount of homeless camps we actually found around the community, going around to stripes across from the VA. There were 3 that would wake up, then abruptly leave in the morning. Unfortunately, we missed them and left. And I could not believe around the water, just old homeless camps, people going there, because I honestly did not expect that. When I had the opportunity to meet one of the cabinet members from DC, I had just gotten here and never realized that there is such a homeless population here. And with the individuals sitting up here, I've gotten to meet some of the people that their luck has not gone well. And one of the stories I wanted to share, we had a great lady who went down on her luck, a veteran, who fell down, became homeless with children. Through the help of some of the people that are sitting here, including Mr. Gary Powers, she's actually works at our facility now and is a great contribution. Before she got there, every morning, you want to see somebody who looked at you and smiled. So the VA is here as part of the community. We actively appreciate everybody, and we wholeheartedly support this initiative with current acreage to continue to help within our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nathan.
Next.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Pino, VA HUD-VASH social worker, and I just concur that the need for affordable rental housing is necessary here in Kerr County. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, all. I'm Vicki Marsh, Colonel United States Marine Corps retired, and I'm president of the Hill Country Veterans Council, which sounds grand but isn't. We're a small council, and we are very narrowly focused on having appropriate services and staffing at the Kerrville VA. And I've known Craig Taylor since September of 2011, when Commander Cantrell and I accompanied him on a site survey. And so we've gotten to know each other very well and have a lot of confidence and hold him in very high esteem. I wanted to say about the do want to address one thing. There were a lot of naysayers before, saying that they're, a bunch of veterans, they're going to be drunk and disorderly. Well, that never happened. And they wouldn't take care of the place. It would be going downhill very soon. Well, that didn't happen. And also one said intergenerational communities don't work. Well, I grew up where they worked, and probably some of you did. So yes, this one has worked. But I wanted to say about Freedom's Path in particular is that given the proximity to Kerrville VA, and those, within walking distance, and the guys and gals who have motorized wheelchairs can get there quickly, it's really the best care that they can receive anywhere in that kind of environment. I wish that we all could have that kind of health care that readily available. And with that, I'll close. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Would all of you who are here to support this raise your hand? You didn't all do that very well. Okay, all right, thank you, thank you. All right, council, we have before us a request and a resolution. Comments, questions, are you ready to vote?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 02-2024, supporting the application of Freedom's Path Kerrville 2 Limited Partnership.
I'll
I
second
think it's
that.
03, isn't it, Joe?
No,
No, he's right.
He's right.
He's right?
He
The
said,
next one, 6B, is 03.
There you go. I'll
Pardon?
second. Oh.
This one's 02, this one's 03.
Oh, okay, I got you. I'm looking at, you're right, I'm looking at the wrong one. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please raise your right hand, and it is unanimous. All right, very good.
About the second part that they're asking for, will that be on a future agenda?
So if you take a look at the resolution, the now therefore sections address that you're committed to it, but that it once approved, once the project is approved, that it would come back to you.
Thank you.
The in-kind contribution is what you're talking about.
That's exactly, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, we are ready for 6B, I believe.
Resolution number 03-2024, a resolution authorizing a waiver of various fees associated with the construction of single-family homes for Habitat for Humanity Kirk County, Inc. Said waiver applicable to the construction of 3 such homes on existing lots. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
All right, Drew?
Good evening again, council. This is a request for waiving the building permit fees for a few homes that Habitat for Humanity is doing on an infill project. Let me get you a little wider map. They've got 3 lots on Gilmer Street that they acquired, and they're wanting to put new Habitat homes on those. The previous subdivision, the Maud Jennings subdivision, council did waive fees, the building permit fees for those. For these homes, it's going to be about an estimate of $1,600 in permit fees per home. And staff recommends approval. I know Ms. Campagna is here if you have any questions.
Okay, council, any questions?
You ready for a motion now?
I'm ready for a motion if you're ready to make one.
I am ready. I move that we approve resolution number 03-2024.
Second. All in favor, raise your right hand. And it is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Drew. 6C, Shelley?
First Amendment to the Design Build Contract with Marksman General Contractors LLC in the amount of $225,800 for the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center project. And we do have 2 citizen speakers signed up.
Okay. And Michael?
Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you again. We discussed this during the workshop. This is getting us to 100% construction documents, so we had a 2-phase part to the design. So we completed Phase 1A, got us to 30% schematic design drawings. And now, after round of funding, getting the additional dollars for the project, and review and confirmation of the scope of the project, we are prepared to move forward with that amendment to the contract. So you'll see that in the packet, and that number is $225,800 to Marksman General Contractors. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Council, questions? Are there any citizen speakers?
There are two.
Oh, you did tell me that. I'm sorry. Yes. Okay, let's have our speakers, please.
Angela Kennedy.
I'm also on the list. If I could start. Honorable Mayor, council members, I'm Bill Rector, 705 Water Street. I'm here representing the Board of Directors of the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. I'm joined tonight by Councilmember Herring, Charlie McElvain, Linda Stone, and David Jones, who's out in the outer wing. We are here tonight to announce to the council and to the community some very important news, and I'd like to ask our Executive Director, Angela Kennedy, to make that announcement.
Angela Kennedy, 547 Fairway Drive. And as Dr. Rector mentioned, Heart of the Hills Heritage Center has an important announcement to make. We are excited to let you know that we have selected an exhibit design firm for our project. Quatrefoil Associates out of Maryland is committed to designing Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. They will develop, design, fabricate, and install exhibits and interactive displays for the Heritage Center. Quatrefoil stood out to us because of their commitment to engaging community in developing the Heritage Center. Actually, the first phase of the project with Quatrefoil will be holding a community stakeholder workshop at the end of February, and we're excited to invite some community members to that workshop. Quatrefoil has an impressive portfolio of projects across the country with history museums and cultural centers, and one of them is here in Texas, in Lubbock, at the National Ranching Heritage Center. Several of our selection committee traveled to Lubbock over the past couple of weeks to view the Cash Family Ranch Life Learning Center, and we were impressed by the work that they did there. It is an engaging space where you can learn about the ranching industry through interactive displays, hands-on components in their exhibits, and I think it's a shining example of the work that Quatrefoil will do here for us at the Heritage Center. Approval of the amendment to the Marksman contract tonight will allow us to move forward in working with Quatrefoil and Marksman and Fisher Heck to develop the Heritage Center and create a space that will make our community and our visitors proud of the history of Kerr County. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are those?
Yes, ma'am, that's the end
Our
of the
two
citizen
speakers?
speakers.
Okay, all right. Council, any questions or comments before we vote?
So I understand this is for phase 2. Are we still within budget for, I know we don't have any of that information in front of us, so don't know where we are in terms of approving this.
So, yes, we are within $50,000 of the budget. So moving forward to the design phase, as we discussed with the public safety facility, in the schematic design phase, you're kind of looking at a car from afar, and then you get to design development, you're pulling in the hood, and then once you get to the construction documents, you've pulled out every piece of that car, and you know what's got to get replaced and repaired, and your costs are down to the wire. So yes, we are. We feel comfortable moving forward where we're at.
Okay, thank you.
You're prepared?
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I move that we authorize the city manager to finalize the design build contract amendment for the Heart of the Hills Heritage Center project.
Second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And it is unanimous. All right. Thank you, guys, and have fun as you move forward. 60, Shelley?
Second amendment to the design build contract with Thales Burn Inc., doing business as Burn Construction Services Corporation, in the amount of $6,029,009 for the public safety facility project. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
All right. Mr. Hornis? you
Madam
wanna-
Mayor, I'm going to turn this right over. I wanted to highlight, last time we met, we discussed this in the work session and then brought it back to you during the council meeting, but we had such an agenda in the workshop already, and we had already gone through one iteration of the early work package, so I said, we'll take it to the regular meeting and we'll have a discussion there. So I want to highlight, Josh Holcomb is here from Byrne Construction. Josh is the project manager for this project for us and has been working with us the entire time. He's joined by Keith Bender, also from Byrne Construction. And in addition, we have our representative, Joel Cookmore, from Friesen Nichols here tonight. So Josh is going to go over structural steel and why we need to buy it now.
It's exciting stuff. So thank you, everybody, for your time. First off, I just want to say how excited and grateful Byrne is to be a part of this project and to be able to have an impact on the community here in Kerrville. So quick update on where we're at in the design build process. We've moved through the SD and the DD packages. Currently, we're in the early work packages. Next, the big ticket items are going to be the CD documents and then obviously the overall GMP for the project. What we're asking for today is the early work package number 2, which, as Michael said, includes the structural steel. It'll have the concrete foundation, concrete tilt wall panels, and the below grade MEP rough-in. And so essentially, we're purchasing a lot of these items early and these scopes early for the long lead times for each of these. They'll fall in line with our construction. We'll have the material on site and ready to go. Quick update on the overall budget. Currently, we stand at $44.5 million. So we've got some wiggle room on the overall budget of $45 million. There are some add alternates that we're keeping the design process moving forward on. If they fall back within the budget, we'll elect to proceed with those. This graphic just shows essentially how we broke out the early work packages from the overall standard design build process. And like I said, the intent there was so we could start construction while we continue to develop the design for the remainder of the building systems. I don't know if anybody's been out to the site since the groundbreaking ceremony, but that first early work package that got approved, it's well on its way. It shortens the construction duration and the design duration, which overall results in a better budget for the city. So we're putting it to good use right now. So the 3 deliverables that we'll take to City Council, early work package number 1 was approved in December. Early work package 2 is what we're presenting today for a total cost of $6 million. And then the third package that we'll take for council action is essentially the remainder of the scope, the overall GMP, and that'll establish the full contract value there. Construction schedule, this is just kind of showing a graphic of what the benefit for having these early work packages are. You can see we are actually starting the construction well before the finished design for the remainder of the building. Then the groundbreaking ceremony, saw a lot of good turnout there. Looked like great participation for the community, so we're happy to be a part of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for him before he sits down? Other than just a yay, we're just so excited
Go
about
team.
this. All right, are we ready to vote, council?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to finalize design build contract amendment for the public safety facility project. The amount
Do we need the amount on there? Probably not.
$6,029,009.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand, please. And it is unanimous. All right. 6E, Shelley?
Professional services agreement with Rock Engineering and Testing Laboratory, Inc., in the amount of $111,900 for the public safety facility project. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
All right, Kyle?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Now that you've stuck your shovels in the dirt, I've got to go test it. Basically, that's what we're doing. We've worked through these early work packages. We didn't want to bring this to two forward. We wanted to pair this up with the amendment that you just authorized. They are moving a lot of dirt, and we're getting a big hole dug. We're getting progressive movement on the entire site. So we want to get rock out there, get the QA/QC testing done, so they meet all of our specifications, all the structural components. So that's essentially what this does, is just wraps up that testing component for the project.
How long does that take, Kyle?
Which part?
Oh,
So
well.
it's the duration of the project. We're
Oh,
doing
okay.
anything from, right now, they're gonna test densities to make sure that the compaction meets the specification from the structural component. When they get the welded, the steels, members welded up, we're gonna have a certified weld inspector come out and verify that it meets the
Mhm.
industry standard for that. Anything from installation of a water line. We're gonna, have that all, tested. The backfill for that, making sure that it's under the parking lot. We don't wanna, go repair the parking lot, in a couple of years because of settlement. So, essentially from day one to, near the end, they're gonna have some form of testing.
Okay, any other questions, council? Let's have a motion.
I'll move to authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the professional services agreement in the amount of $111,900.
Second? We have a second? All in favor? Right hand, please. And it is unanimous. Want you guys to all know, we really love you. We're giving you lots of money here, so. All right, 6F.
Professional services agreement for the Texas Department of Transportation for Transportation Alternatives Set Aside Sidewalk Improvement Project. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
All right. Kyle?
All right, this has been a long time coming. Kind of give you a brief recap on this. So this is one of the items that we had in the 2050, get pedestrians off the street. This originally started out in 2021 as an application to this program. We were approved in October by the Transportation Commission, got through a lot of the TxDOT issues of getting everything, all these different forms and whatnot authorized. We brought a resolution to you last February for the funding agreement. That funding agreement has been executed, and now we've gone through essentially the procurement of design professionals. We issued the RFQ for that in December, received those on the 12th of January. We had 4 respondents, and basically what we're bringing before you tonight is kind of a dual action item. It's approval of the rankings, but it's authorization of the city manager to execute the agreement with the highest ranking individual. Will begin the negotiations. If we can't come to terms, then we'll terminate in writing and go to the next highest until we reach agreement with one of the firms. So, just a recap of what this is, it's a little bit of infill on Hill Country Drive. There is some existing sidewalk with a lot of the work that's being done over there. Bulk of the sidewalk is going to be on Wesley and Coley. If you've been over there lately, there's a lot of pedestrians walking to the hospital on the street. This was an excellent candidate in the Transportation Commission's mind to link HEB to the hospital, to downtown, to the park. So again, these are the 3 streets that we're going to be looking at putting 6-foot sidewalk on. I mentioned the procurement. This is just following local government code, the Professional Procurement Act. We have to go through a evaluation criteria. This is some of the qualifications that we did. This one's a little more specific than what we would typically do because there is certain certifications that TxDOT requires. It's called the LGPP, which is the Local Government Project Procedures. Very cumbersome day and a half, but well worth it when we can save the city $1 million for sidewalks. With that, like I said, we got 4 teams that proposed on this, and the committee's recommendation is KSA Engineers out of Austin area as the highest qualified proposer. So next steps on that, as I mentioned, this is kind of a dual portion. It's authorization of those rankings I just showed, and authorization for staff to begin negotiations and city manager sign the professional services agreement. Once we do that, we think it'll be a relatively quick process. This is a pretty straightforward process or a project, and the notice to proceed for design will begin in February with roughly August-September timeframe for the construction. I don't know that the timeline on duration of the construction right now. I would guess about 6 to 8 months. So hopefully this time next year we'll be wrapping the project up. But that's all I had. Any questions?
Okay, council, questions, comments?
We don't have an estimate yet on the expenditure?
No, sir. Now, we had funding, if you recall, this was about $1.1 million that
Right.
was TxDOT. Local 20% match was about 250, 260, somewhere in there.
Right.
I don't recall, I want to say 263.
I think yeah, okay.
Okay, are we ready for a motion?
I move we authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute the professional services agreement for the Texas Department of Transportation for the Transportation Alternative Set-Aside Sidewalk Improvement Project.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor? Right hand, please. 4 are for, opposed? We have Mr. Garcia opposed. 6G, Shelley.
Purchase of 2 Stephen G2 custom pumpers from Texas Fire Apparatus through the buy board, purchasing cooperative number 651-21 at a price not to exceed $1,900,000. There are no citizen speakers signed up.
All right. Chief, you want to say anything else?
So we presented in the workshop about the fire apparatus replacement plan and the recommendation moving forward on that plan to purchase 2 of the custom G2 pumpers from Sutphen for $1.9 million. And that is the purchase agreement in front of you all tonight for the city manager to finalize and execute the purchase agreement.
All
I'll
right,
be
thank you,
glad
sir.
to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Best I can.
Any comments?
The only comment I have is, a thank you for the presentation you made at the workshop. I think it would be beneficial to have those, whoever's drafting the agenda, to have those here at the regular meeting. 1, it's good for the public to be aware of, but 2, depending on whatever we have going on throughout our meetings, we've been here since 3 o'clock at a meeting, then had a 4 o'clock workshop where we discussed this, and now at 6 o'clock, we're finally getting to it. I just think it'd be good to have that information presented to us when we're actually considering the action item to be taken. So obviously, that's not against you, Chief, because you didn't do any of that, and you gave your presentation, so I appreciate that. But for future, that's how I would like to have those proposals, because now everybody else who's here, or anybody who's watching, is probably like thinking, what in the world did you present? And they're gonna have to go back if they weren't able to watch it. So we know, but not everybody else knows, and sometimes those questions and discussions that come up, the dialogue, is helpful to be had here. That's why we have regular meetings set in the charter. That's what it's there for.
Not everybody on the council agrees with that opinion.
Right.
Nope, I didn't say everybody did, that was my opinion, so.
Are we ready for a motion?
Yes, please. I move that we authorize the city manager to finalize and execute the purchase agreement for
Second.
2 custom pumpers.
We have a second?
Second.
Second, we're from Brenda, and all in favor, please raise your right hand, and it is unanimous.
I raised mine for the record.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, we are coming up towards the end here. 6H. Shelley?
Wind Ridge Project Development Agreement, an agreement out of the city's tax increment reinvestment zone number 2, and with Lennar Homes of Texas Land and Construction Limited for the Wind Ridge Residential Subdivision. We do have 3 citizen speakers signed up.
Okay, thank you. Michael?
I'm
Anything
starting
to add?
Yes, ma'am, a little bit. I'm starting to understand what it feels like when it's the Drew Paxton show and he just stands up here all night. So this has been a long time coming. We appreciate everybody's patience. Just gonna go over a quick slideshow. Martin, if you can go to the next slide. We all know what area we're talking about. We've been talking about this for quite a long time. Before I get started, I do want to highlight Clifton Karam from Lennar Homes is here, along with their attorney James McKnight, and Pablo Brinkman, also in the back there, sitting with them. So just want to acknowledge them before we get going. The 100 acres that they are considering purchasing, I think everybody knows. Every time I drop my son off at middle school, I now stop and kind of stare at how this configuration is going to look. Next slide, Martin. Okay, major deal points, and we can get into y'all's questions. The term of the TERS at 30 years, so this would end in 2053. 60% of the available tax increment will be reimbursable to the developer pending the availability of funds, okay? The maximum reimbursement amount that would go to Lennar would be $27,803,000. Now, that's a different number than what we estimate that they would receive, right? So if y'all remember the discussions with Julie, and we run the scenarios on proposed tax increases, valuations of the property, we have to set some limits in there, and that number was closer to $11 million, right? The total number of homes proposed in there is roughly 490 new homes. That's what's in the agreement. What's on the plat is probably going to be more than that, but they wanted a little bit of buffer room in there. Those homes will have to sell at or below TDHCA maximums for workforce housing. That includes the incentives that they are able to offer. 50% of those homes will require two-car garages. All of them will have two-car driveways. Not all of them will probably necessarily have two-car garages. The disbursements of those funds will come at one time. They can submit that starting in October, and then we have about 90 days to get that money back and remitted to them. And then one of the questions that I know we talked through last time was, is anybody going to be allowed to do any bonding? Neither the city council nor the TERS board would be able to do any kind of bonding on this. So that's explicitly stated within the agreement, section 4.4 of that agreement. And then the last thing I was going to highlight was, so it's section 8.1. It's basically the approval of the payments. How that would work is Lennar Homes submits those payments to the city. We review those payments for conformance through Public Works, Engineering, Utilities, Finance, and our offices. Once we say, yes, those payments are in order, those go to the TERS Board of Directors. TERS Board of Directors reviews those, votes on that, then that gets submitted back to the City Council for the final approval and disbursement. So I just wanted to clarify that. Martin, you can go to the next slide. I kept this one short and sweet because I knew we were at the end, and if y'all had points you wanted to get across or questions you wanted to ask of us, we're happy to answer those. And with that, Madam Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Before we bring our speakers up, any comments, questions from council?
Yeah, if we can get some information, whether it's going to be you or from the developer, how we got from 11 million to the jump of 27 million, and I'm wondering what information we were initially relying on that changed substantially from then till now.
Mr. McKnight.
Good evening, Council. James McKnight for Lennar Homes. So the 27 million is taking into account how much money Lennar is spending on public improvements. TERS gives the city the ability to pay increment funds back out of whatever money is spent on public improvements. So 32 million was spent on public improvements. There was another agreement that was already put in place for another 5, so we subtracted that 5 million out. 27 million is simply the max. That is the amount of public improvements that have been completed, that could be completed by Lennar within that area. Now, all of it is dependent upon the home. The home and the home price, as it's assessed, creates the increment. So do we think that the increment will actually reach high enough to get money high enough to get to 27 million? We have no idea. But 27 million just means that's how much has been spent as eligible. So it's just a reflection of the number of the amount of money that's being spent on public improvements. That's it. But what's actually reimbursed by the city is completely driven by the price of the home and the assessment made on the property.
Our projections were run internally, so the cap, minus the 5 million, our projections and scenarios were run based off the 60-40, split, and then based off of the assumptions that we had either at 1% or 5% as far as assessed value increasing over that 30 years. So it ranged anywhere from 11 million to 18 million. So, every scenario we ran was a little bit different based off of those percentages, but that's how we based our difference. So that's why the difference is so large from 27 million down to what our scenarios are. And each year we bring to council and of course the TERS board and the audits, we will have accurate numbers that will continue to project out and extrapolate out over the years.
So is the 27 the amount that we're expecting or estimating per that schedule that they're going to be reimbursed?
No, sir.
It's not. Okay, then that's what I misunderstood.
No, it is, so the standard, and when we discuss this with bond counsel, the standard that you see is there's a cap on the term, the length of the TERS agreement, and then you negotiate the percentages, right? And so the percentage dictates a lot of what that fee is going to be because, you know, as time goes on, tax rates will likely go down, we all hope. Looking at George. So we run iterations on what if the valuations of the properties increase 1%, 3%, 5%. But we have to maintain some stasis in that, in running those scenarios because we're all not going to be here in 30 years figuring out what the tax valuations
Actually,
are.
I show up every 30 years.
So based on that,
I might be.
That's maybe.
My generation will be.
It's going to be somewhere in the ballpark of 10 to 14 million. Our estimates and our assumptions is not going to get anywhere close to that number, but that is a number set based on the value of the public infrastructure that's going to be put in.
Okay, any other questions, comments, council?
We want to have them speak any more.
But my question is there anyone else who has a question now? All right, we have some speakers.
Yes, ma'am. Pablo Brinkman.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Pablo Brinkman, 3928 Oak Park Drive. We're coming up on, I think Cliff and I were talking about, we're a few months shy of 3 years on this project, and I just want to compliment everybody. I've learned a lot through this. I've learned that staff has worked this diligently and has accomplished things. I don't want to dip Lennar in the grease, but it's accomplished things that Lennar has not done for other cities that I've learned. And that has allowed, and that just shows to me the dedication of them to Kerrville, Kerr County, to our, adhering to our 2050 plan and to really make this work for Kerrville. So I applaud staff and going back and forth. It's been a long time coming. This is going to be great for Kerrville. It's a 10-year project. It is you heard Mr. Hornish talking about monies, what things are going to be. That development, that flat work, all those things, it's just a lot of steps. And those that have kept with their existing project and seen how long it's taken to clear, to do flat work before you ever get in, dry utilities, things like that. We learned a lot, Lennar did, and my client Shriner learned a lot of how to approach this. So we've had to kind of temper our expectations because in a commercial world, and Judy, you know this very well, or Madam Mayor, you know this very well from real estate timeframes, even in commercial, this is a long thing. So it's so many steps involved in this. And I also applaud Kerrville on with the tiers, with really taking this when this really became. This is what it's designed for. And I just want to thank everybody again, Lennar, my client Shriner, staff, all the members of the council, everything they brought to it is going to help this project and really help this project come to the DA that's in front of you right now. Because the development agreement in front of you, all of y'all have commented on, staff has worked very hard. Mr. Hayes has worked tirelessly as well. And I can't say enough about that. There's so many things involved in what's before you to get to this level. That's why it's taken almost 3 years. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nikki Keynes.
Good evening, Nikki Keynes. I'm here because I remember back November 14th, I believe, a lot of citizens came before council with more practical concerns. And I read through this 34 pages, and I got a lot of legalese, stuff that didn't quite answer any of my questions. So I do have a couple questions. Mr. Hamilton, and I believe the other man's name was Ron Carroll, brought the issue that if Lennar is going to be an in-house financier, if they're going to be the developer who can sell to whom they want, I'm looking at constantly through what I did read, it mentions Lennar's, the developers, its contractors, and it's, the people they're going to use. So one of the questions and one of the issues from November 14th was, are any Kerrville businesses and residents going to be included in this? Are they gonna make a penny on this, or is this literally something Lennar is going to make money on, whereas no bankers, no realtors, and contractors, would they or would they not be included in that? And I had an issue, and I didn't see it in here, maybe it was. I asked if the developer had the sole discretion and authority to sell a percentage of that 490 homes or a specific number of homes as a grouping or even individually, but up to a certain amount to, say, a large investor. Because if that were the case, I foresee that investor ends up being a landlord and he's renting. So it's not really home ownership, and if they're going to rent, I would say rent an apartment and not rent a home. So if I missed something in the contract, I'd sure like to have some answers on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
George Baruti.
George Brewery, 1616 Glen Road. So all I could say when I saw it about the maximum thing is, wow. I understand that nobody seems to think that it could get that high. Why you would allow it to even possibly get that high is what I don't understand. You could have put a cap on it. We were talking about that before. I didn't expect you to put the cap that you put. It is possible for them to reach that. If you look at our tax rates just staying the same through the next 30 years, but our assessed values go up at the rate they're going up now, I think it takes an 8% increase of assessed value to get you to this number. And I don't know about you, but my house is going up at like 10% right now. I'm not gonna say it's gonna do that forever, but I'm just saying that's an achievable goal. And why we would put that cap on it, if they reach that goal and you add the EIC money, that's $66,000 of public subsidy per home. I keep talking about sustainability. If every house we bring here, if every new resident coming here requires $66,000 of subsidy to bring them here, we're going broke before they get here. What are we doing? And so we're not getting affordable housing because that housing is costing the entire community that money. So everybody else's house is going up, just so you know. The other thing is looking at the legalese that's in there, it talks about the pricing that it's supposed to be whatever it is. Never mind the misrepresentation of the home program that's in there. But there's no enforcement of that. There's no real stipulation. When they go to get their request for the money, there's no policing of the house sales that went on. So I'm not really sure how that's supposed to occur. Is it just an honor program? And to Ms. Kane's point about investors, I don't know about huge groups of it, but there are ways to game this system. It gets down to you can't sell the last 10 houses. You just sell them to somebody who then flips them. That first house price is the only one that matters. So these are things, especially when the developer is the one doing the financing. I'm not so concerned that they're making a buck on the financing, but there are ways to game this qualified pricing only occurs on the first sale. So you might, I say this all the time, nobody's going to change anything in this agreement, I assume. But I wish you guys would ask these questions before it comes up, because $27 million, when you could have had the cap be whatever you guys estimate it to be, and played that game with Lennar and say, is that a price you guys can deal with it, as it is right now? We're the only ones taking the risk, and that doesn't make any sense. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's the end of the citizen speakers.
At the end of them, all right. Michael, any responses?
Excuse me.
To Ms. Kane's point about the investors, we had a long discussion, several meetings worth, kind of talking about the commercial viability of that, right? And it's non-existent. So no developer of housing subdivisions would build a subdivision of this size and not have investors be able to buy that. The other thing is, and I appreciate what you said about go rent an apartment, but a lot of folks want to rent houses and need to rent houses, right? So it's a transitional phase. People live in apartments, people rent homes who can't afford to buy a home yet. And that's a big part of that workforce portion. And so that was a discussion topic amongst the council, but in discussions with Lennar, you know, that was a deal breaker for them, and two, for good reason, because I think it was just not a viable option to pencil out for their model. And it makes sense because we need renters and we need home buyers. So to that end, there is that. To the point of the cap, so we had discussions about placing a cap on the value or placing a cap on the term. And so the standard is to place the cap on the length of the TERS. And based on our analysis and the way that we run our numbers with finance, the estimates are that that's going to be about $11 million over the course of that time. So that is what we have to go off of, and we feel pretty confident in those numbers.
And Madam Mayor, to add on to that, you know, and why the cap was kind of a less of a concern towards the end of the negotiations, you know, it went from initially 75-25, 25 going towards the city, and we negotiated the 60-40. So that was putting more, you know, 40% more of M&O back into our stuff for, you know, for sustainability versus before it was only 25%. So we felt that was a good give based off of multiple scenarios that we ran on, you know, assessments and property taxes. As good as we could extrapolate out, we felt confident on that.
Thank you. Okay, council, we've heard from our speakers and we've had information. Are we ready for a motion?
I have a couple of questions in discussion. What happened to the $20 million cap and the 30-year cap that we had negotiated for this to be in this agreement?
I don't follow, Councilmember.
The caps that we had originally, or I guess the last ones that we had.
On the TERS term or on the funding, sorry?
The funding from the
Funding,
TERS,
okay.
right, yeah.
So in the initial discussions, and Mr. Hornis might be able to speak on this prior to me getting here, the initial caps were kind of based off of initial assumptions, and I think there's a lot of unknowns when we first started kind of talking about it.
Well, I'll stop you right there, just because the ones that I'm talking about are the last caps that we had ever spoken with, because before it was way different. But what we have even before us was not what we were at least asked to be negotiated and presented before us. So I'm wondering where those caps, the last ones that we had discussed, what happened to those negotiations being reflected in here?
I'm confused.
Yeah, I'm confused.
I don't know that I understand.
Just because I was part of the negotiations the whole time, I might be able to speak to it, just that in terms of the starting point, when we first started this, yeah, we were at a 75-25 and 70-30. So there was negotiating going on both sides. We have lost what we were looking for a higher percentage on our side, but as Dalton pointed out, the city wanted to maintain, so that percentage changed. When that percentage changed, the caps moved back and forth. I mean, we talked about caps on things, but what hasn't been said about that cap, the 27 million, is if we reach that cap, that means that the values have gone way up, which means that the city is getting a huge boost in their percentage as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, my time is being used for your remarks, but that answered the question. I appreciate it.
Okay.
A couple of, one thing that I want to caution my colleagues is that we shouldn't just do something just to see something get done. The phrase was said earlier that some of us may not be here at the end of this 30-year lifetime. I would hope that I would still be calling Kerrville my home eventually 30 years down the road. So all those others may not be suffering the burden of this development. If I'm still here, or my generation, we will be. And you got to think about the longevity and the future of our community rather than just now, and wanting to see something come to fruition. So for the reasons that I stated before, that we're including the subpar quality of Lennar's previous developments, the fact that the city is subsidizing a developer when the houses aren't really even going to truly be affordable and attainable housing, as it's clearly lined out, it's not even made up, it's clearly lined out in the development agreement now what the prices are going to be, including the funds that were authorized by EIC to subsidize them. And it's not even evident that this development's truly going to accomplish or even get close to the goal that we're trying to provide affordable and attainable housing for our citizens. This does not reflect the negotiations that we had asked to be in this agreement. And for all those reasons that I've stated now and before, I would highly encourage my colleagues to, the rest of council, to take a step back and let's not approve this. We shouldn't be put in a position where we feel like we are at Lennar's time frame. They've come to us, not the other way around, and it shouldn't be the other way around. The cities should not be in the business of providing all this housing. We should be working to provide what can we do to make sure that the areas that we want in our community are available for that, but not directly involved in the subsidization of this. And we've let ourselves be put in a position where, unfortunately, we're left with this agreement and the development that's not going to be the best that we could have gotten it to be. Probably even close. It's not even going to benefit, and it's not going to provide the goal that we said it was going to. So I'd highly encourage you all to vote against it, and I know I will. Thank you.
Well, and I have to disagree with you, Roman. I think that that what we're doing is providing housing that is going to be affordable. And when you look at other housing that is going in and other types of developments, it's way beyond, the prices will be way beyond what this development is going to give our citizens. And so I highly support it, and I think that we are doing the right thing for Kerrville. So, anybody else, anything to say?
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry.
It's just that Mr. Garcia seems to believe that we don't try to think about the future. Even if I'm dead in the ground, I'm still hoping Kerrville is better 30 years from now than it is today. In fact, 30 years ago, it was controversial to put EMS in the fire department. Yet we did it. And it was the right thing to do. This development, it's not just about the life of the TERS. And it's not even about your generation. It's about generations of people who will live in those houses. And it is disrespectful for you to say that I don't think about the future of my community. That's what you said. We're not thinking about, you're going to be here, you're the only one that's going to be here in the future, and you have to bear the burden for 30 years. Well, you're strong enough to bear that burden. And I think this is a step forward for our community. I do. In a perfect world, maybe there would have been some changes here or changes there, but what we're building is not what Lennar is building. Is not just houses. It's neighborhoods. It's homes. And our community has been talking about affordable housing or workforce housing for decades. And even if these houses are not priced at a level that everyone can afford, those people who move up to these houses we'll leave other residents and apartments for other people to move out. It's like everybody wants to move just slightly up. And I think this will not only allow people to move up to this type of house, but it will increase the supply. The reason our housing is so expensive in Kerrville, as it is elsewhere, is that supply doesn't meet demand. There's more demand than there is supply. This will increase supply, and hopefully it will help make other homes around our community more affordable. We as a group we can't see into the future. We can't. And some of us may not live 30 years into the future. But I think about that. I think about the future quite a lot. And it's, hopefully you do too. Anyway, I'm going to vote for it. I think it's the culmination of many, many, many hours of work, not only for this council, but previous councils. And I applaud the staff for your skill and your patience. I applaud Schreiner University for sticking it out. And even though Lennar's on the other side of the table, I'm grateful for what you've brought to our community. Okay?
Are you ready to make a motion?
I am. I'm happy to make a motion to approve the development agreement between the City of Kerrville and Lennar Homes of the Texas Land and Construction Industry.
Second. We have a second from Brenda Hughes. All in favor, please raise your right hand. And we have four for the development agreement. Thank you. Opposed? And Mr. Garcia is opposed. Thank you all very, very much. We appreciate all of you being here. And, we look forward to a good working relationship for many years. So thank you. All right, we have one more.
Two more.
Yes, 7A.
I'm back again. Good
Oh,
evening.
are you before 7A? You're before 7A. I'm
I am.
sorry.
I'm not lying. I am 7A.
Oh, you are 7A. That's
I am
right.
7A.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll call you Julie, but you're 7A.
I'm 7A today. That's fine. Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief financial report. So this will be for the first quarter. So this will really be the first true financial report for this fiscal year, because there's been a lot of moving parts with only having one meeting a month and those kind of things and timing. So give you a good solid end of calendar year 2023 update. So I gave a little bit of just brief look at our most notable revenue categories in the general fund. So property tax as of 12/31, right at 6.1 million, about 51.4% collected. That's about in line with what we typically see. This does include current taxes as well as prior taxes that were owed, so it's grouped together like that. Remember, we see a better than budget, estimated budget of 400,000, but we only budget at 98% collection rate, just to leave a little bit of room for those that we don't collect from one year to the next. Sales tax, 2.4 million, 41,000 better than we estimated it for it to be, flat with 2023, which is really what we budgeted for. If you remember, 2024 is budgeted just slightly less than 2023, just because of some economic factors that we saw and then trends as we were seeing, but 8% better than 2022 and 22% better than 2021. So when you look at it historically, and we keep talking about that, even though it's leveling, still we're way ahead of where we were 2 to 3, even 4 years ago. Services, that's going to primarily be EMS, solid waste, landfill surcharges, and then some administrative fees that we collect from Republic Services. 1.2 million, that's right in line with budget and slightly better than 2023. This is just the format that you're used to seeing it in. So overall, general fund, 514,000 better than where we estimated the budget to be. Keep in mind, December, January, heavy property tax months, so that can level out. We just continue to watch that. By the end of January, we'll have a lot better idea where property tax is going to land. Personnel, we're better than budget right now, but keep in mind it's early, so we haven't started a lot of training. It does include salaries, any benefits, overtime training, and all those. Anything related to personnel is in that line. Liability insurance did come back substantially higher than we thought, at 30,000 more than we thought it was going to be. I think we've all experienced this insurance increase in our life, and so we were expecting an increase, but not quite that much, but we'll work through that. And then
just timing of some other payments on the expense side. And again, we'll just continue to track that, but they're lining up pretty close to what we're used to seeing. This is just a little bit different look at the general fund major revenues so that you can see just how we're faring as far as percent collected. So the dark line is, the dark column line there is our budget. The blue line is what we're estimated to be at this point in time. And then the green line is our collections to date. And the purple line is just percent of collections. So you can kind of see as we talk about what we budgeted for each revenue source to be percentage-wise, how that lines up month to month and is lining out with how we budgeted. So we like to see that that matches out to the way we budgeted. And then just a little bit different look at sales tax. So you're used to seeing this chart on the bottom right corner. I did take out some of the prior years. It was getting pretty busy. Just gave you a 3-year look there with the start of 24 thrown in. And you see that dip in November in 24. That's because we had a prepayment in October. So you'll see a high October, low November. And that's why we talk about rolling average a lot of times, because someone will pay 1 month and not the next, and vice versa. And if it's a big payer, it will throw it. And the top line there, top graph there is just a year-over-year, year-to-date sales tax collection. So you can see 24 really right in line with 23, which is really what we expected to see. Everyone's favorite topic right now, of course, is water fund. So, August, obviously, September, October are still pretty heavy watering months. And so we saw a pretty big impact on our revenues there. So through December, almost $400,000 worse than where we estimated to be at this point in time. Consumption 28% down compared to, we took an average of the 3 prior years and compared it to that so that we had a little bit different look. But 28% down compared to the average through December. We all know when water conservation efforts ramped up to stage 4, and that did have an impact. Sewer, not so much, because remember, residential is all sewer averaging, so that amount stays the same month over month. We are in sewer averaging months right now, for anyone who doesn't know. So December, January, and February, that's when your sewer is determined. So we definitely don't want to water during those months. March, those bills will be recalculated, and then April bill will reflect that new sewer average. Commercial is a little different because their sewer is directly based on water consumption. So for those commercial users who water from their regular, or irrigate through their regular water main, that does have an impact on their sewer. And we feel like that's why the 25,000 shortfall there in sewer is related to commercial. Reuse, doing better than budget estimate. I will say that from about probably May or June all the way through really October, we sold a lot of reuse water from the water reclamation plant to people outside for irrigation purposes or other. So, that did come in very handy to some people who didn't have another water source. So I feel like that was a really good resource there. Taps and other fees performing well. We have a lot of projects moving right now, as you know, a lot of construction going on. On the water fund side, to personnel, 76,000 better than where we budgeted it to be. We do have some vacancies in that fund right now that we're trying to fill. On the expense side, overall, we're really trying to conserve resources as much as we can, but we continue to talk about the water fund still has to operate regardless of whether we are selling water or not. So, as we talk about rate setting and those kind of things, this is why we continue to talk about the base rate. We are heavily tiered right now, so higher users are getting charged more. And so when we take those, higher users away, it does have an impact. So that's just something that we have to deal with as we go through drought conditions and things that we're dealing with right now. So fiscal year 24 to date, we're almost about $380,000 behind budget just in water sales, behind fiscal year 23 by $390,000. So we were expecting to be, up just based on the model, but as we talked about, the model is only as good as we can forecast. And so we're continuing to work on that and using different averages and different methodologies. It's just very unpredictable. So currently through December, the water fund has a total change in net position of negative $400,000. So we'll keep watching that. As I said, we're really watching expenses. It's just really hard we don't have a lot of fluff built in there, as we know. This is just consumption chart, so just gives you a look at the last few years' consumption month over month, so you can see what kind of water we actually used and produced, or used, I guess, not produced. And so you can see different years and how that looked each month. So I think the yellow line there, yep, the first 3 months of the year. Sorry, it's hard to see from this angle. So you can see basically as it progressed over the last several months and how that's declined. which we know why that is, so that was expected. So it's just, again, looking at the last few months of bills, we compared to a 3-year average consumption, because every year is a little bit different based on what's going on. October bill, so that was September consumption, we were 38% down. November would be October consumption, that's typically a heavy irrigation month, was 43% down, so you can see there the impact of a drought. And then December bills was November consumption, so still 20% down there. So we already have billed for January. Just completed that. It's not in this report because we weren't ready at that point, but that's about 12% down in consumption from last year. So another about $7,000 in January. So we'll continue to watch this, and don't say that just to be a naysayer from here, but it's something we definitely have to keep an eye on as we look at it from a budget perspective. And, basically we still have to pay the bills. So how's that going to look over the next few months? So we're keeping really close track on it. This chart we just included to show you rainfall inches. USDA tracks by calendar year. So it's just kind of interesting to see the bottom line there is a 30-year average for us. And then you can see, wet year, dry years, and there is variations. So a lot of volatility when we're trying to predict what's going to happen. It's really hard. Quick look at Hot Fund. So revenues still running behind budget and behind last year. I think maybe everybody's saving up for when they're coming out here in April. We'll see what happens. Year to date, we're on track for expenses. I think it's going to be really hard for me moving forward after this to say this is where I think we should be, because we're going to have Eclipse expenses that are going to be a little bit different and harder to model. So you probably won't hear me see budget estimate anymore. Either that or I will remove Eclipse expenses when I do that, just so that I can make sure we're staying on track, but at the same time, just really keeping you informed as far as what we're spending on the Eclipse side and looking at the revenues coming in. I think it's important for us to see what the impact is over the next few months to travel in general. We did have the Community Arts Program grant come in from the Community Foundation, so that has been received and paid out. And so they're moving forward. Actually, I'm going to visit with Julie next week, and we're going to talk through kind of what they've been doing. So far, it looks like from their report that they're doing some really good things with that. So excited to see that. Last slide here, I just thought this might be a little bit interesting for you guys to know. So to date, we've paid almost 2,100 invoices through our department from October to the end of December. These are our major expenses that have gone out. They're grouped, some of them, so these are not by invoice, but they're grouped. But I just thought it's kind of interesting when you break it down like this to see what we're actually spending money on, either by category or by project or whatever. So, you can tell we're ramping up on public safety facility, which is good. Street reconstruction, a lot of stuff going on there. Finished Westminster, which was really good news, I think, for all of us. And starting on those water projects too. So a lot of things happening. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about this or anything else that we've covered tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
Okay, now we are ready for 8A. Shelley?
Consider appointments to the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 2, City of Kerrville, Texas, also called the Wind Ridge TERS.
Michael?
I get up and talk again. So what you see in the agenda bill are the list of submissions that Lennar has proposed. So part of the TERS agreement outlines that the board should consist of 7 board members. Lennar has provided a list of 5 of those names for your consideration. The remaining 2 names per state law are state senator and state representative for the district. The lawyers can answer that question a little better than I can, but Clifton Karam, Richard Mott, Josh Skates, and Taylor Hogg, all of Lennar Homes, and Travis Elsith from Collier Engineer and Design are the list of names that they have put before you. So with that, I will turn it over for any questions.
Council, any questions? All right, are we ready for a motion then?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
I move to approve the recommended appointments to the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 2, City of Kerrville, Texas, also called the Wind Ridge TERS.
Second?
Second.
We have a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand, and it is unanimous. All right, thank you, council.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of the evening. We do not need to have an executive session. Are there any items for a future agenda? I think I have one, Shelley.
Yes, ma'am.
Remind me what it is.
EIC vacancy that
That's
will
right.
occur.
That's right. That we need to appoint to EIC and replace the individual who is going to be leaving. So, okay. Anyone else has anything for future? All right. Thank you all, staff. Thank you. You have spent hours and hours and hours and hours on many of these projects that we have voted in tonight. We have done many, many, many good things for the future of Kerrville. It has been a good evening. At 8:25, we will adjourn.
Good job tonight.